reality is we're going into a Democratic Congress. We're going to have a Democratic president. Congressman LaTourette fell into the bottom third of the Congress in the last Congress in bringing funds back to the district. It's time for a common sense change.
Next question. Gentlemen, one of the topics that I hear rarely, if at all, has to do with immigration. And two aspects I'd like to have you all comment on. One is the harsh treatment that some undocumented families have been receiving at the hands of the Bush administration, which leads to the question of what should our policy be with respect to the millions of undocumented residents of the United States. And the second part of immigration is the difficulties that businesses and universities have in bringing in people from foreign countries who would contribute mightily to our economic strength.
1 minute each for the candidates. Mr. O'Neill, you're first.
You know, unless you're a Native American, everybody in this room is an immigrant. Let's be honest about that. You talk about the harsh treatment. It is an embarrassment what we have done for the immigration issue for the last 8 years. A case that comes to my mind that I was approached on is an Indian lady from Mentor who ended up in the Solon jail while her children fended for themselves while they looked at her immigration status. And it wasn't until she hired my friend Margaret Wong that she regained her freedom. If we were to enforce the laws that are on the books, just enforce the laws that are on the books, we would be making a giant step forward in immigration. We don't need brick walls on the border to Mexico. What we need is employers and employees being treated fairly. And I will know that the administration is serious about immigration reform when I watch on the evening news when they roll up to that packing plant and they take 60 workers away, that they take the employer with them, because those are the real cheaters.
Thank you. Congressman LaTourette.
Well, listen, I happen to believe everybody should be treated humanely, but our laws are our laws. And I don't think that it's appropriate to put people that have come into the country unlawfully ahead of people that have followed the rules. And let me just give you one example down in Hudson. Hudson Company bought a firm from Great Britain. They brought the husband and wife over, applied for a green card, applied for citizenship. He waited 7 years. He didn't get his number. He and his wife had to go back to Great Britain. The last thing he said to me before he left is, please don't put somebody that hasn't followed the rules ahead of me. I'm a big believer in the laws. I'm a big believer in humanity. But, you know, one of our policies that we had broken was we didn't have enough facilities so that we could have people and then send them back from whence they came. And people were surprised at the border when they would pull somebody over and maybe for a traffic violation, find out that they weren't in the country lawfully, and they'd give them a ticket and say, please come back a week from Tuesday. Well, surprisingly, a lot of people showed up a week from Tuesday, and if you haven't followed the rules, you don't belong in the country.
Mr. Macko.
We don't have an immigration problem. We have an invasion problem. When we bring our troops back from all over the world, we should put them on the southern border if they're needed there. We should do whatever is necessary to stop the invasion problem and send people who don't belong here home. We should do this without taking away the rights of our God-given constitutional rights. Of course I'm against over-harsh law enforcement for anyone. Some people got harsh treatment asking McCain and Obama questions at their conventions. The immigration problem has been created by the Democrat and Republican government. Some people believe it has been created to cause the American people to give up more of their rights. Let's not give up our rights. Let's enforce the law, send people home who don't belong there, and then let people in who want to come in legally.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question.
I would like to ask each candidate, do you think health care is a right or a privilege? And I would also ask each candidate, do you think owning a gun is a right or a privilege? And what would you do to restore the Second Amendment?
It's a lot in 1 minute. Mr. Macko, you may go first.
Okay. Health care, of course, is not a right. If you had a right to health care, that means some doctor and nurse somewhere would be your slave. The whole health care issue is designed to enslave the American people. In the case of Rickard versus Filburn in 1942, The Supreme Court ruled that whatever the government subsidizes, it has the right to regulate. If you have government health care, you'll be ruled from morning until night in everything you do. Regarding guns, you have a God-given right to defend your life, liberty, and property. I would repeal all federal gun laws, starting with Roosevelt's tax on machine guns. We need the Second Amendment. That's the only gun law we need. Going further on health care, we should abolish the Department of Health and Human Services, get rid of all of these federal regulations and meddling.
Mr. O'Neill.
Well, I just don't think, thank you for the question. It's a good question, and it's one that goes to the core of America today. 200 years ago, we decided everybody has a right to an education, and so we built a great school system, and everybody has a right to go there. And now we don't have a health care system that everybody has a right to go there, and yet the government is paying for it. We pay for Medicaid for poor people, we pay for Medicare for old people, but if you're a working stiff in the middle, you don't have a right to health care in America. That's wrong. It is a fundamental right. It is a fundamental right. We need universal health care in America based upon the Medicare model. It will save money, it will save jobs, it will put our manufacturers on a level playing field in the world market. And the Second Amendment, sir, I was a judge for 10 years. I'm an expert marksman certified by Fort Benning, Georgia. The Second Amendment says everything I need to hear. You have a right to bear arms.
Signature on the amicus brief.
Sir, his time is up.
Okay.
Talk to him afterwards. Congressman.
Well, Dave, I was just sort of toting things up, and I got to tell you that with all the stuff you're closing, there's going to be a lot of space for rent in Washington, D.C.
That would be good. That would be good,
Well, here's the deal. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. That's why I've been endorsed by the NRA every time that I've run. That's why my grade is an A, and Mr. O'Neill's is a D, and I don't know what yours is, David, but I'll bet it's pretty good.
The GOA gave me an A, the NRA ignored me.
I'll
But
bet.
the GOA gave me that. You got an A minus from GOA, so.
Well, yeah, I know. But listen, I don't think health care is a right or a privilege. I think it's a responsibility. And the biggest problem that we have in this country, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to how we're going to take care of our families, is that rather than coming together and trying to find a solution to how we're going to all have adequate health care, we make bumper stickers out of it. When a Republican has a suggestion on Medicare, it's because he hates your grandmother and he hates his own grandmother. When a Democrat makes a proposal on health care, it's because he's a socialist or he wants to have the opportunity to nationalize health care. We spend $5 trillion a year in this country on health care. People should come together, fix this problem to make sure that you and your loved ones are taken care of.
Thank you. Running short on time, let's take another audience question.
Thank you. I have a question for Congressman LaTourette, and it pertains to something that has been brewing and bubbling over, especially in the last few weeks. And it has to do with racism and bigotry and prejudice. And it has to do with your vote on House Resolution 363, hate crimes. I would like you to explain to me why you voted against hate crime legislation that A, would have covered, and I want to be real careful about this, death or bodily injury because of the actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability of the victim. A bill that passed without your vote, I might add, okay, a
Your question
bill
is,
that
short
would
in
have allowed local law enforcement funds.
Thank you.
Please explain.
Congressman.
Well, I think I'm going to put you in the undecided column, is that right? Yeah, so listen, I mean, here's the thing. That piece of, I hate crime. I was a prosecutor for 6 years. I think any crime is a crime. I think people that commit crimes against other people should be punished to the full extent of the law. I think when you begin to, and the key word in what you indicated, and we tried to remove it, is perceived. That bill is a payday for the trial lawyers that support Bill O'Neill and everybody else, and we're going to have lawsuit after lawsuit, because who's going to determine if